What's up, y'all? This is Brave, and I'm back for another review of Love and Marriage Detroit. This is season 1, episode 6, and the episode is titled Spill the Publicity. I can't lie to you guys, before I even jump into the review, I have to say that this show is so draining. Like, I don't know if they're just conjuring up drama because it's a new season and they ain't really got nothing going on. Because some of this seems made up, and then the other parts of it, I'm just like, why are all these men acting like this? Like, and then the women are childish. I'm trying. I really am trying with this show. Y'all, let's just go ahead and get right into the review. So, of course, we are starting off back with Anthony and Christina arguing. Now, Anthony, he feels like the Kobe situation has him judging Brandon's loyalty. Now, does this personally affect Anthony? No, it does not. However, it does make him aware of the way Brandon moves and operates. And I completely understand why Christina and Brandon are saying that's two separate situations. But I'm also understanding where Anthony is coming from, because when you think about the grand scheme of things, we're all supposed to be boys or whatever. We're supposed to have this friendship group. All our wives are supposed to be cool, but you're starting up drama unnecessarily, and you're willing to disrespect, one of your partner's wives, even though this situation has nothing to do with you. And unlike Russell, who was trying to calm the situation down, Brandon was stirring it up more. So then you have Brandon. I'm giving him a side eye, because I'm like, sir, why are you sitting back and letting Christina fight your battle? It is crazy to me how many times we have seen Christina have to, number one, stand her own ground to fight for herself because Brandon's homeboys continue to attack her. But on top of that, now we have to watch her defend Brandon, and this is Brandon's drama. I don't even understand. So we see Christina go on to feel like they are basically making it seem like her and Brandon are like the bad couple. And then she says that Anthony is protecting the other couple. And I'm like, what is he exactly protecting them from? I don't think he's trying to protect them. But I will say that I think that he has chosen a side for sure. I feel like Anthony probably feels like, him and Russell, they probably align more than him and Brandon at this point. But let's go ahead and move on. So Anthony, he goes to catch up with his wife at their home, right? I really didn't want to see what the house looked like, but all we got was the backyard. Nonetheless, she says that it's weird that Christina hasn't told Kobe happy birthday, considering their friendship. And I'm like, girl, don't even worry about that. Don't worry about if Christina and Kobe talked. Find something else to talk about. Let's talk about opulence wine or something. Like, it doesn't even make sense to me how involved she kind of is when it comes to Kobe and Christina, because it's very clear that she's chosen sides, because she's definitely rocking with Kobe. So Anthony actually ends up telling his wife that, the conversation between Christina and Brandon, it wasn't exactly the best conversation. Because, he went back and forth with Christina and how she called them bandwagon jumpers. So LaToya is like, well, I just don't like all these public arguments. I said, oh, okay, cool. I see what type of person that LaToya is. LaToya is the type of person that would rather have private conversations than for us to be trying to embarrass ourselves in public places. Because I've said, why is she always sitting quietly whenever Anthony is getting rowdy? And it's because I'm pretty sure she checks him at the house. And as far as the other couples, my only thing about LaToya is that I understand that you see it as Christina and Brandon always having issues and it always being loud because of them, and it's always super dramatic. But your husband plays a part in that, sweetheart. Your husband, we have literally watched him go at Christina multiple times about how she's holding Brandon back and how she's doing this and that to Brandon. So what you could have done half of those times was tell your husband, baby, we do not need to be doing this. We don't need to be involved in their relationship. Let them handle that. Because you should have reeled your husband back in, and I feel like a lot of those conversations wouldn't have escalated the way that they did. Because let's be honest here. It was your husband who got things messed up when y'all went to that opulence wine tasting. That was your husband who dropped the ball that the guys were at a club. And then went on to antagonize and try to drag Christina's friend while you sat there and did nothing. So don't sit up there and act like, oh, Brandon and Christina are the only ones who are stirring up the pot and making all this drama. No, your husband is right there in the middle of it. All right, y'all, so let's go ahead and move on because now we have to talk about Russell and Kobe. The only thing that I got out of this scene is the fact that he is ready to negotiate, some type of deal so that way he can buy this gym. Again, leaving her out of the loop, no gym that she's never been to, and now he's ready to pay for it using both of their funds. I'm so tired of this. I feel like I'm annoyed with Kobe and Russell because it seems like they only have conversations while the show is filming. It makes absolutely no sense that everything is news to her. Like, come on, Russell, do better. All right, now let's slide on over to the Star Factory, you guys, because now we have Brandon and Christina. For some reason, Brandon has now enlisted her, his wife, into being the stage manager. I'm like, when did that happen? Is that even what she wants to do? What she's qualified for? At that point, I realized this whole showcase shenanigan was something that they thought of so that way we can have a plot line that's running in the background as the goal for this season. Like, by the time we get to the end of the season, it should be time for the showcase. We'll see if there is one. So, come to find out, Anthony basically told Brandon that he has 3 slots and that there's a total of 25. I am so confused as to how they think somebody is going to want to sit through 25 unknown artists. That's a lot for a showcase. Y'all could have did a solid 10 and wrap this thing on up. It don't need to be all day. But you already know, Christina is like, Anthony is tripping because how is he doing this? This is supposed to be your showcase. And here's the thing. This is not Brandon's showcase. This is something that Carlos set up, okay? This was supposed to be group effort to show that both of these men know what they're doing when it comes to music. So now, of course, Brandon has an issue with all of this. And my only thing is, why are you only mad at Anthony when you have another partner in this, which is Bravo, and you don't say nothing to him? Bravo has been skating by every chance we see him. Every time we see Bravo, they gotta catch him up on the drama that done happened. And he just sit there like he's stuck on stupid, even though he know that he done had secret meetings with Anthony. You know what I'm saying? He knows that things are moving and shaking, but he ain't calling Brandon to say, hey, Brandon, this is what's going on. Let me update you. He ain't doing that either. So I'm kind of giving a side eye to this whole situation. And another thing, I think that Brandon is full of crap when he was like, I'm not looking to try to make money off of this. This is just to showcase the talent in Detroit. I find that very funny because you're the first person to ask what the splits look like. Because you were trying to see if they were going to be able to split up some type of profit. That was you who said that. And I believe it was Anthony who was like, ain't no money involved. Okay, so according to Brandon, he spoke to a DJ who was also magically involved. Y'all, we ain't met him yet. I don't know if we're going to. Nonetheless, he talked to the DJ. The DJ said, all right, cool. You bring your 10 artists, I bring my 10 artists. The total would be 20 artists. So now Anthony ain't bringing no artists. And as their conversation continues, Christina had asked, like, oh, what does Anthony even do? And Brandon was like, I don't know. Because Christina was like, is he a manager, a producer? Like, what does he do in music? And Brandon says, oh, I don't know. And I'm confused because I'm like, all y'all talking about we boys. We've been rocking with each other for years. And you don't know what your friend does? That's crazy to me. Like, you may not know the ins and outs of what your friend's jobs is, But like, okay, if my friend drive a bus, I know they drive a fucking bus. If my friend is a teacher, I know that they're a teacher. Alright, enough about them. Let's move on to Kobe. Her homegirl Chelsea comes over or whatever, and they talk about how she has to talk to Christina. They had a good time at the party, and how her and Russell have some issues because he doesn't exactly let her know what's going on, and she feels like because he's had to be a leader and he's done a lot of things on his own, that sometimes he just disregards her and makes decisions on his own. That was pretty much the whole scene. Let's move along. Now we have Christina meeting up with a publicist by the name of Brittany. This publicist is supposed to be the bee's knees. She's supposed to be, I guess, the top publicist in Detroit. So according to Christina, as she was adjusting to be a new mom, as well as her married life, she basically took a step back from being in the scene, probably going to events and stuff, and now she's ready to go back to that life. AKA, I'm ready to be out there because I'm on a TV show. Nonetheless, she tells Brittany that, she thinks that she's the perfect person to really get her out there. So Brittany basically tells her, hey, work on some content that'll be, setting you apart from the others. Cool. But then also we learn about a text conversation that these two ladies had, because before them possibly working together, Brittany had heard some things through the grapevine. So according to the story that Christina is saying, basically she heard that Anthony was talking to this publicist or whatever, and her name came up, that this woman was going to work with her, and she's like, oh, no, he was like, oh, that's shocking, because Brandon don't even like you like that. I said, oh, okay. I mean, maybe there's a possibility that Brandon may have been working with an artist, and that person probably needed a publicist. They probably met with Brittany, and they probably told that artist, you can drop Star Factory. I would not be surprised if that was a situation and his little feelings was hurt. I'm just saying. But back to the story at hand, Brittany reiterates that Anthony said it was okay for me to have this conversation with y'all, and said that he's the one who said it. It seems like Anthony's standing 10 toes on the fact that Brandon said this. Now, Christina goes on to explain that, I don't really know, and Brandon may have said that. I said, hold on. You mean to tell me that you're going to meet with this woman, and over the phone, or at least over text, she let you know, hey, this is what I've heard that your husband said, that he don't rock with me. You didn't go to Brandon, so that way when you actually have this meeting with her, you can say, listen, I talked to my husband, such and such went down, and he didn't mean that. That's not what he said. You can't even come to this woman and tell her if your husband said this or not. So why are you playing in her face? And then for her to bring up Russell and Kobe out of nowhere, because I'm just like, what they got to do with this? She was basically trying to say that, Anthony was talking crap about everybody. And how she called Russell and told Russell that Anthony said something to this publicist about them. And Brittany was like, well, he never mentioned them. He never mentioned Russell or Kobe. He only talked about you and your husband. And I'm just like, wait a second. So, Christina, you literally called Russell to tell him about some drama that's not even true? Girl, now you really trying to start a pot. Let's go ahead and move on. So now we are at a men's meeting, aka Bible study. I mean, they even started this off with a prayer. But baby, Jesus must have left the room, because this quickly turned, okay? So basically, Russell realized that, he cannot hold it against Brandon that he called his wife a Kobe cat. That's pretty petty. And I guess they're trying to move forward, right? Great. So Russell goes on to let the guys know that, well, I did have a conversation with Christina. She called me, and, she was trying to tell me about some drama that went down, and how people are trying to, throw mud on me and Kobe's name. And he's of course, saying, like, listen, you need to have a conversation with my wife because at the end of the day, y'all still have y'all issue. And Christina's like, well, I just have to tell you this, that Anthony is just dragging y'all names all through the mud in these Detroit streets. Now, y'all, I have to be completely honest. When Anthony told this story, I was believing him. Let me tell you why. Because he literally knew exactly what Christina was referencing. And he was like, I never mentioned y'all names. That's not what I was talking about. What she's talking about is when I had a conversation with my publicist, and when she told me that she was going to possibly work with Christina, I told her that Brandon said he don't F with you. And then when I saw Brandon make that face, that stupid face, I said, yeah, he said it. He absolutely said it. Now, according to Anthony, he has known Brittany for a very long time, and he feels like the only person who will be lying in a situation saying that he mentioned anything about Russell and his wife will be Christina. And I was like, well, you right, because baby girl definitely did jump the gun and call him to tell him that this publicist let her know that Anthony was talking about them. So now Brandon and Anthony feel away, and that opens up the floodgates for us to discuss the showcase. So according to Brandon, he feels like Anthony has definitely overstepped. He feels like Anthony has had conversations with Bravo and basically tried to make it seem like Brandon can't be trusted or whatever. And Anthony's like, well, I didn't try to make him see that. Basically saying he saw that for himself. Because then Brandon says, because y'all have half of the showcase already planned out. Hold on a second, sir. If they have already half of the showcase planned out, you cannot sit up here and keep blaming Anthony for everything. You have to at least question Bravo, like, why are you handling all of this? Why aren't you, giving me a little bit of the load? What's going on in these secret meetings that you having? I'm sorry, but it's annoying me that Brandon has all this heat for Anthony, but none for Bravo. So, baby, at this point, they turned into Brandy and Antoinette because they were going back and forth. You have Anthony calling Brandon little boy, calling him, all this stuff, telling him, boy, please, I've made $1 million. Ain't nobody been here touched $1 million. Then you have Brandy hitting him with but you had your daddy's money. Like, honestly, Antoinette and Brandy were dragging this, and I wanted both of them to shut up. So here we go also with Anthony, or should I say Antoinette. I'm going to need for you to stop calling people little boys and little girls. Please stop doing that. As well as stop telling people to stop playing with you. Let's not do that, Antoinette, please. Because it's very childish, and also, like, it doesn't help you win the argument. Now, at one point, Antoinette had to let Brandy know that Star Factory hasn't had any artist that was popping. Star Factory ain't made not a 1 star, okay? And I'm just like, well, he ain't lying. Because had Brandon actually been, a pivotal figure in anybody's career, they would have mentioned it on the show. And at one point he mentioned something about like, yeah, well, Big Sean came to me. And I'm just like, well, how old was Big Sean when he came to you? Like 16 years old? Because he's been famous and rapping for over a decade. So at this point, they're going back and forth, and Johnny Bravo decides to jump in to try to calm the situation down and tell them that they're being very egotistical and just throwing jabs at each other. Here's my thing, Bravo. I don't need you chiming in at all because there's no accountability on your part. Like, you haven't jumped in and said, wait, Brandon. I know that you think that we were having secret meetings, but we were just trying to get the ball rolling. Like, you ain't said nothing. You've been sitting down on mute every time we see you. And honestly, I feel like Brandon and Anthony, I don't know what that drama is. Maybe there's that sexual tension that they have. That's the problem. But I do feel like there's some parts of Brandon that is jealous of Anthony. And the reason why I say that is because it seems like even though he tries to say, we don't know what you do, Anthony, like, we don't know what your job is, whatever. But I'm like, clearly he's connected. And clearly he's able to get things done because you said it yourself that they've played half of the showcase. Why is it taking you so long to round up your artists? Because you wanted to be in charge of talent, right? So where is your talent? And then on top of that, again, why are we not having any smoke for Bravo? Because Bravo, he's continuing to work with Anthony. So y'all, at this point, they are still going back and forth. I mean, it got to the point where Anthony was calling Brandon a little fella. Check the resume, little fella. I said, who says this? Maybe that's a Detroit thing. Now, I did kind of do a little giggle when Anthony told Brandy that Star Factory ain't made out of 1 star. I was like, well, Brandon, I don't think you want to keep arguing if there's no talent coming out of the Star Factory. Because that sounds really bad. Like, for real, for real. Now, according to Brandon, Big Sean, the Sean Don, came to him first. And my question is, how long ago was this? Because if Big Sean was working with you way, way back in the day, because I am a A1 Day 1 fan of Big Sean, my question is, was this before he ran to the radio station to go rap for Kanye? Because if you were working with him prior to signing and all of that, that's like saying you worked with him in high school. Like, I guess, whoop-de-doo. But what else is going on? Like, it's not like you continued the relationship and kept you around for a while. But nonetheless, it's cool that you work with Big Sean. So they are continuing this argument. And now Johnny Bravo decides to finally chime in and tell them that, you know, they're better than this and how they need to try to move forward, right? But I'm just like, yeah, that's cute. But you still not addressing the part that you play in this. Because at the end of the day, you were still moving forward with Anthony and leaving Brandon behind. Again, Brandon, why are you not questioning Bravo right now in front of everybody so that way you can get the answers as to why he didn't think to keep you in the loop? So now you have Anthony saying how he still wants Brandon to win or whatever, and how he can't sit in Brandon's face while Brandon is just blatantly lying. Because according to Anthony, he said that about Brittany. Now here comes Brandon talking about some, well, let's say I did say it. Sir, you said it. We know at this point you said it. Let's say I did say it. Why would you go back and tell Brittany? And he's like, yeah, because that's actually my friend. Here's the thing what I need people to realize is that all because you're friends with somebody, that doesn't mean that they only owe you loyalty. Because they may have other friends that they also owe loyalty to. So I completely understand where Anthony was coming from. Where he's like, yeah, I think that's a weird connection if you're going to try to work with somebody who I know I've been friends with for years and you don't really rock with them, but because it can benefit you, that's the only reason why you want to work with them. That's super lame. But nonetheless, the man basically squashed this foolishness, and then here comes Johnny Bravo again, finally admitting his wrongs in the situation, because he was actually the one who was pushing for them to get this showcase stuff up and going. And I'm just like, okay, so if Bravo is admitting that he's the one who was actually making a lot of the moves, Brandy, why was you going so hard at Anthony? Like, I don't even like Anthony like that, y'all. Y'all know I can't stand Anthony because he always in women's business and in women's faces. But nonetheless, when it comes to this situation, I am giving a side eye to Brandy because you're not making any sense. Like I said, he never questioned Bravo as to why things were moving so fast and without him. He would only question, why is Anthony doing this? Why Anthony doing that? Baby, it wasn't even Anthony this whole time. I cannot. Y'all, some type of way, we wrapped this up with a bow because the men decided to hold hands and say prayers. I don't remember them cracking them Bibles open not a one time. But, yeah, I guess everything is good in the hood for right now. But let's go ahead and move on. All right, here comes Christina and Kobe. They meet up or whatever. And honestly, I feel like these two should have met up together after the situation. Of course, let a couple of days go by, cool down or whatever. But they definitely should have met up at some point without any outside influences. And what I mean by that is I feel like things would have went a lot smoother had, LaToya not shared her opinion of things. Talking to Kobe and Russell and having, Russell have time to tell Brandon he's going to break every bone in his body. And what was the other thing that happened? Oh, Anthony having to argue with Christine. I feel like all of that added even more layers to this foolishness. So the girls are sitting over here arguing already because here's the thing. I feel like they are starting at two different points of the situation because Kobe is starting at the beginning of, hey, if you felt like, you didn't understand what was going on, why didn't you just pick up the phone and that way I can give you the answers that you need and that way you can get your clarity? But what you decided to do was show up in front of everybody and be like, well, why'd you do this? I didn't understand all this other stuff. And honestly, the conversation should have been a private conversation. Now that I do agree on. Now, when it comes to Christina, her starting point is at the bowling alley, and not the bowling alley, the skating rink, and how she didn't like how defensive Kobe was. And I'm like, I think Kobe is defensive because you basically wanted to have this conversation in front of an audience, which was LaToya, and honestly, it didn't work out in your favor, at least not to me. So when it comes to Christina, though, I just kind of feel like I'm giving her the side eye because how is it that you're telling her now, oh, I wanted to have that conversation with you in person? Again, why did you need clarity in person? That is something that you could definitely have a phone conversation about, number one. And number two, well, you should have met with her privately because that right there is a business topic. It should have just been you and Kobe. You should have said, hey, girl, let's go to grab lunch or whatever, and we could talk about this deal. But again, you didn't even send her a text message back. Like, that's crazy to me. So now we have a whole added layer because, again, like I said, these girls haven't talked and there has been a lot of talk and chatter amongst the group. And now we have this added factor. Christina, why did you call Russell? And I have heard people say, oh, well, Russell said for Brandon and his wife to go through him when it comes to like contacting his family. I'm like, no, I don't think he meant that Christina had to go to him. I think that he meant that if Brandon had anything to say to his wife, then he had to, come to Russell first because he had the whole Kobe Cat thing happen. As far as Christina, I don't think that Russell would have tripped if Christina would have called Kobe and be like, hey, girl, let's go ahead and talk this out. You know what I'm saying? But you have Christina calling Russell to tell him how Anthony was talking mess about y'all to this publicist who's known around Detroit, and that wasn't even true. So it's like, what's worse about it is that you're willing to spread gossip with my husband that's not even true, but you can't pick up the phone and say, hey girl, we actually do need to talk about this because it doesn't make sense that our friendship is ending over something like a brand partnership. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me for Christina to have contacted Russell. Unless you were calling him to check the temperature of the situation with you and Kobe, to be like, hey, Russell, just reaching out to see, I know that me and Kobe, we've had our moment, but I'm just trying to check the temperature, see if, maybe we can meet up. I'm just trying to see where Kobe's head is before I reach out to her. That's about the only thing you should have called Russell for. Because when I think of it, you also could have called Kobe and been like, hey girl, I know that we need to have a conversation, but let me just get this off my chest real quick because I just found out that Anthony is, telling other people negative things about my family as well as yours. You could also went that way about it, but you didn't have to call Russell. Now, at this point, again, they are going back and forth, and I feel like Kobe, she was so hell-bent on telling this woman not to call her husband. I was like, girl, we get it. But y'all, can we please circle back to the initial issue that we had? Because now this became all about the don't call my husband situation. And then you also have Kobe saying, don't ever contact him because you need to go through me, all this stuff. But one thing that stood out to me was the fact that she's like, no, I know what you did because this was just basically you trying to get some get back at Anthony. And I'm just like, well, I guess that is kind of true because that lady said he did not mention anything about the Russells. Or no, not Russells, the Harrison family. I don't know why I just called them the Russells. So y'all, they just kept going back and forth and back. And I mean, it was very draining to have to listen to them yell because their voices are kind of I don't want to say whiny, but it get a little high pitched. And one thing that I will say is that Christina, I have to give you a side eye because after you got that message from Kobe, it sounds like you just didn't respond. You just ignored it. And you keep yelling about how I wanted to talk to you in person. Well, girl, you didn't tell her that. So that's where you dropped the ball. It sounded like you just assumed that she was going to know that you wanted to talk to her in person. Like, girl, that wasn't going to get us nowhere. Next, Kobe. I understand you're frustrated. I understand that you're mad. But you were not letting Christina say a word. So that's not how a conversation works. And you could at least let her say her piece. Because Christina was very adamant about her wanting to have this conversation in person. And how, it was Kobe's fault because Kobe thinks that the world revolves around her and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, y'all are just going around in circles. Like, I don't understand how this little brand deal from Harper Ray, which I'm not trying to knock Harper Ray, but you would have thought that this was a brand deal with like a really, really big brand. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's mind-boggling to watch Christina talk about well, I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you. Well, girl, why'd you wait till the skating rink? Like, it doesn't make sense. I feel like you should have, once she sent you that message, you should have been like, hey girl, let's go over some things over lunch. Or swing by the house so we can talk about it. That's all you had to do. Like, for real. Child, we done ended this scene with Kobe telling Christina that she's conniving and manipulative. I'm like, you know what? I don't know how this friendship can, flourish again. But also, I feel like all of this is made up storyline. But I guess we gonna rock with it. Y'all, let me know what y'all thought about the episode. Are y'all team Brandon or team Anthony? Are you team Kobe or team Christina? What y'all think about LaToya and her not wanting to be involved with the foolishness? Yeah, let me know what y'all think about it. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to y'all the next one. Bye, guys.